Hello! It is time for the July reading wrap up. We are 7/12ths of the way through the year 2025, and it has been a good reading year. July wasn't the most productive month. I only read 4 books, but what I did read, I enjoyed. I had a positive response to everything that I read. 2 of the books I absolutely loved. One of the books is a contender for my favorite read of 2025. So far, I've read some really great books. 2 lit RPGs, 2 works of horror, so a nice eclectic bunch of reads. I also filmed some reading vlogs. It has been some time since I've done some reading vlogs. I enjoy them. These were spoiler filled reading vlogs for Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 4 and Book 5, and I enjoyed filming those immensely. So look forward to seeing some more spoiler filled reading vlogs in the future. I know they don't perform very well, but I love a good spoiler filled book chat. There are several books that I'm carrying over from July into August because one of them I'm reading along with the book club, and I didn't want to go ahead because that's improper. That's bad book club etiquette. And the other one I wanted to restart because I wanted to film a vlog for it. I'll talk more about that later. But first, let's talk about the books that I did finish in July. The first book, The Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinniman, Book 4 in Dungeon Crawler Carl. I loved this one. It was amazing. I love seeing Carl and Donna and Katya and others go on a bunch of hilarious action-filled adventures. I found the plot and the setting of this one to be the most interesting. I love seeing all the crawlers work together. I loved the way the climax was concluded in this book. I usually do not like to read series that are ongoing, and Dungeon Crawler Carl is ongoing. There's going to be 3 or 4 more books left before Matt Dinniman concludes the series. But I'm not bothered by it, surprisingly, because I know I will have no issue with rereading these books 2, 3, maybe even 4 times. And I never reread books. These books will have great reread value from what I've heard. They're a good time. I love the audiobook productions. They're amazing. I'm relatively inexperienced when it comes to lit RPGs, but Dungeon Crawler Carl is top notch, and it's slowly becoming one of my favorite series of all time. And I know that sounds silly because this series is objectively ridiculous, but I can't remember enjoying anything as much as I've been enjoying the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. And it'll be a sad day when I'm up to date with the series and I'm waiting for the next installment to be published. That'll be a sad day indeed. The next book I read was very short. It is a medieval horror by Giles Christian, Hellmouth. This book was creepy. It follows a band of mercenaries who are basically put on a suicide mission, a mission that seems a bit sketchy, a mission that seems a bit too good to be true. They are promised forgiveness for all their sins, and if you are a mercenary, you've done a lot of bad. So these guys go on this mission where they're escorting a priest and this mysterious woman, and they're going to, dispatch to capture this guy that's kind of starting a cult, and crazy things happen. Devilish things, possessive things, possession things? Not sure how to word it. Creepy things. And the conclusion of this, it really sent a chill down my spine. I loved the action. I loved how eerie I felt. I loved the creepy antagonistic forces. I'm I'm not the biggest horror reader, even though Stephen King's my favorite author. I still don't consider myself a fan of horror. But Giles Christian, I know he's best known for his King Arthur retellings, but he's got a talent for writing medieval horror. Hellmouth is incredibly short. You could read it in 2 or 3 hours tops. October is coming up. It is the spooky Halloween season, and I think Hellmouth by Giles Christian is definitely worth giving a try. Another short horror read that I read in July was Ushers by Joe Hill. This one was creepy. It tells the story of 2 police officers that are interviewing a young man who has been the survivor of several crazy catastrophes. He survives a school shooting, he survives a catastrophic train crash, and they're interviewing him and seeing if he has any connection to these horrible catastrophic events. Things are unfolded in the plot. I will say the plot is quite predictable, but the execution was done very well. This is my second Amazon original story from Joe Hill. It sounds morbid when I say it out loud, but I've been procrastinating reading Joe Hill mostly because he is the son of Stephen King, and Stephen King is my favorite author. He's one of the main reasons I started reading fiction. And I've read two of Joe Hill's Amazon original stories. I like his writing style. I've heard good things about him, and I know he's a good horror author in his own right. So part of me has been waiting until his father stops writing or passes away, so that way I could start tackling Joe Hill's bibliography. Because it sounds like, to me, it feels kind of good and comforting to know that even after Stephen King is gone, someone from his family will still be publishing work. And I suspect that Joe Hill and his son Owen, if he continues to write, will continue to write things in Stephen King's universe. That's what I think is going to happen in the future. I'm not sure if it's more, but that's kind of what I've been waiting for. I still have so many more Stephen King books to read. And then after he's gone, I'll read all of Joe Hill's books, and it'll be a lifelong passion of mine just following Kingsian fiction. And finally, last and certainly not least, my favorite book of July, my book of the month, my contender for book of the year, The Butcher's Masquerade by Matt Dinniman. Dungeon Crawler Carl, book 5. This book is definitely in my top 3 for the year so far, which is insane because I'm not sure if it's either East of Eden or this that takes us the number 2 spot. And it's silly for me to say that because Dungeon Crawler Carl, the series is objectively ridiculous. But let me tell you, there were 2 scenes in particular in The Butcher's Masquerade that brought tears to my eyes, that sent chills down my spine. I know it's lit RPG ridiculousness, but Matt Dinniman can really write. I love his characterization. I love the dialogue. There was a particular character sacrifice in this book that was just inspiring. I don't want to talk about too much of the particulars because I don't want to spoil anything. But if you have read The Butcher's Masquerade, I do have a spoiler-filled reading vlog where you can see my reactions in real time. And it's safe to say, this series is in my top 5 favorite series of all time. And maybe after I finish the next 2 installments that are currently out, it might be in the number 1 spot. So in a few months, when I upload my top 10 favorite series, don't be surprised if you see Dungeon Crawler Carl in the number 1 spot. I only finished 4 books in July, but I'm currently reading several books that are going to carry over into August that I will definitely be finishing. Me and my friend started a book club. We are currently reading Watership Down. We just finished part 2. Some of us are slower readers than others. I will definitely be finishing Watership Down in August. Another book that I was reading in July that I decided that I want to restart because I kind of lost my groove of it is Wizard and Glass by Stephen King, book 4 in the Dark Tower series. I was about 15% through this book, but I got thrown off my groove. And I want to restart it, and I want to vlog my experience reading this book because I love reading vlogs. So I think doing spoiler-filled reading vlogs for Dungeon Crawler Carl as I'm doing spoiler-filled reading vlogs of The Dark Tower could be an interesting variety for people that watch the channel because both these series are very popular and a lot of people have read them or are currently reading them. So I'll definitely be finishing Wizard and Glass in August. Another book I'm definitely finishing in August is Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Me and Jimmy Nuts from the Fantasy Network are reading this book together. I've heard that it's very similar to Mass Effect, and Mass Effect is my favorite video game series of all time. So I'm hoping that it scratches that itch. I started it just a few hours ago. I'm like 25 pages in. So far, so good. I like Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think this might be like my ninth Tchaikovsky. Mostly his novellas. I've read a lot of his novellas. But I have high hopes for Shards of Earth. I had the Final Architecture series on my list of series that I wanted to start in 2025. And I'm glad I'll be reading this along with Jimmy Nuts. So maybe some discussions about this book in the future. I don't know. I've never done a book to read along. We'll see what happens. On the comic book front, I'm currently reading Bone by Jeff Smith. Bone is considered by many to be the Lord of the Rings of comics. It's one of the best comics of all time, according to many readers. But when I heard that this was the Lord of the Rings of comics, I was expecting something a little bit more serious, something a little bit more epic. I'm about 40% through the series, and let me just say, the first 13 issues were not epic whatsoever. You could see things being foreshadowed, but mostly every issue I read up until that point was just comedy. The Bone family, they were just going about their business, trying to con people, falling in love, doing stupid things. There was no overarching plot, really. And it was very hard to get into the story, but I finally have passed that tipping point where the story goes from just silly everyday nonsense to something epic to the start of a journey. So I'm very optimistic about this series. I've heard great things about it. It's won so many awards. I know it's going to end on a good note. But I must say the first part of Bone was very difficult for me to push through. So that's everything I'm definitely going to be reading in July. If I finish these things at a good rate, I'm also going to pick up The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. This is his first installment in his Library trilogy. I'm hoping that the mixed responses to the Library trilogy is just because Mark Lawrence isn't for everybody. I've read 4 of his series. Most booktubers have not read that many of his books. And I think maybe I'm just a fan of Mark Lawrence. I think I'll love anything he publishes. But hopefully this trilogy is as good as I'm hoping it's going to be. I'm optimistic, but what everyone else is saying about the trilogy does have me worried. But I loved his Red Queen's War trilogy, and no one has even read that trilogy. So, who knows? Maybe I'm just a very easy to please reader. Safe to say, July was an okay reading month. But August is going to be a great reading month. I'm very optimistic about that. I look forward to seeing what the stories have in store for me. I'm thankful for you guys watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys next time.